Stephen Harold Spender was an English poet, essayist, diarist, critic, and a playwright. His works on social justice are based on inequalities of the society. The point of focus being class struggle, his works mirror the inequalities and paradoxes of the societies. He was a self-proclaimed socialist and a pacifist who believed that war and violence are unjustifiable. His notable works include Poems of Dedication, The Edge of Being, The Creative Element, World Within World, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, and so on. The poem we are going to read today is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. Let's discuss each of the aspects of the title poses. Have you ever seen slums? How do they look like? They are a stark contrast to the posh city living. They are highly populated residential areas with minimal living conditions. Slums pose great health challenges to people living there due to lack of hygiene. The people live there belong to a lower strata of society with meager or no income. Slums often provide safe haven for unlawful activities due to their inscrutable setup. Children who live there are subjected to violence and have no access to what we call a good life. Recall the conditions in Simapuri and Firozabad. How children fall victims to the immediate environment and poverty there. Getting children to school in such conditions is a great challenge. What is elementary education? Elementary education in British context is the level of education for children between the ages 5 to 13. And in the North American context, it refers to the schooling levels of 1st to 6th or 8th grades. Spender wrote this poem in the year 1964. He has expressed clearly his apprehensions about the governmental policies which have failed to provide an equal educational opportunity to everyone in the land. Elementary education back then was considered a localized issue. 1960s witnessed an upheaval in civil rights consciousness. Spender, who was a socialist by perception, criticized the worldwide stand on class inequalities, particularly in the field of education. Though Spender did not specify any country, this is an outburst recorded during the civil rights movement of 1960s. Unlike the present days, when the parents can afford to spend a hoard of money in catching their children young, for people of the other side of the society, education is still a flying pig. In that sense, Spender's poem holds water even today. Living itself is a difficult deal for people in slums. Schooling is too far-fetching. The school system fails to inspire children in every way. There's hardly anything about their life in the curriculum. Children there find the lessons quite unrelatable and hard to consume, if at all they try coming to school ever. When education itself is immaterial, getting children of ages 5 to 13 going to school is too distant in slums. They are either less preferred or perhaps even not sought after. What if we happen to visit such a school? What could possibly be the things we would be seeing there? Come, let's view an elementary school classroom in a slum through Spender's eyes. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnawed disease, his lesson from his desk. At back of the dim class, one unnoted sweet young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Let us discuss stanza 1. The poet starts the poem with a repetition far, far. Repetition is a stylistic device employed to stress upon a particular aspect usually. Here, Spender wants to stress upon the physical and the metaphorical distance between a slum and a super-advanced city. Gusty waves is an implication for a fast-moving life of a city. This is a metaphor again. Gusty waves refers to the gush of air or the effect of suddenness and noise the never-ending life in city produces. Let's listen to this. The children inside the classroom are considered rootless weeds. It's a simile. Weeds, as you all know, are useless plants seen detrimental to the healthy growth of food crops. These children too are purposeless or wasteful in the eyes of the civilized society. Imagine weeds being rootless. Aren't they doubly useless? These children's lives don't matter in any way to the society they are a part of. Well, how do these children look? They look so dull and impoverished and so lifeless too. Their hair was scattered on their lifeless faces. Well, who all does the poet see there? A tall girl with her downcast head, a paper-thin boy, a boy with a congenital bone disease whose bones are twisted, and a sweet young boy whose lively, dreamy eyes look outside the classroom, imagining a supposed squirrel's game in a tree room. If we could study the stature of these children, we would get more insights and clues into their lives. Mostly, their lives are spent in darkness. The girl whose head looks down, perhaps due to some unspeakable burden or shame which doesn't allow her to look eye to eye with others. Or perhaps if you consider her the oldest, owing to her height, she may be around 12 or 13. That's the age girls become conscious of their body, looks, dress, and beauty. Her poverty and helplessness perhaps making her feel ashamed. This girl could be taken for a symbol of poverty and downtroddenness. The other boy, who is paper-seeming, appears to be a testimony of impoverished lives of slum dwellers. The third boy, with a congenital disease of twisted bones, speaks well of the pathetic and untreatable conditions that make people suffer in silence and ignorance. Children are not just the inheritors of parents' fortune, but shareholders of parents' misfortune and diseases too. In this case, the father does not have any fortune to bequeath, but certainly a disease to pass on. The boy recites well the disease more than the lessons themselves. Poor child, who has nothing to do with the proceedings of the class, was lost in a dream of a squirrel's play in a tree house. As I discussed with you in the course of previous slides, this stanza is charged with a number of poetic devices. It starts with far, far, which is an instance as to how far the slum is from the city. Two fars imply the slum being too far away. It's a paradox. The more advanced the city is, the less accepted the slums are. The lazy, less productive life in slums is a stark contrast to a much busier life in the city. Gusty waves is a metaphor for the fast city life. Rootless weeds is a simile because of like's presence there. It is also a symbolism for how doubly unwanted these children are. On the one hand, they are weeds, and on to the other, they are rootless. The tall girl with weighed down head is a symbol and metaphor for poverty, burden, and shame, and even submission that comes with it. The paper-seeming boy is a simile, an explicit comparison to the paper-thin structure of his body, and his rat's eyes are suggestive of his conscious, evasive, as well as curious looks. It may also suggest his ever-hungry stomach, just as the rat who would be always hungry and nibbling. The stunted, unlucky air of a poor parent is a sarcasm that this heir apparent of his father has no prospects or fortunes to inherit, but a disease, in fact, which has crippled him to his desk and slum forever. The glossary of stanza 1 for you.